After seeing what's happened in the rugby property market over the last 18 months, a question I've been asked a lot recently is rugby heading towards a house price crash? Let's talk about it. Rugby house prices rose by 1.9% last month according to the Land Registry, meaning the annual rate of house price growth in rugby now stands at 13.5%. Looking at the national figures, many people are concerned the UK property market was overheating as spring saw annual growth of 9.9%, the highest rate of house price growth documented since June 2007. It was only a matter of a few months later the credit crunch hit and the value of the average UK home plummeted from 190,000 to 154,000 in 18 months, a drop of 18.7%. Government economic measures such as the furlough scheme and the stamp duty holiday have so far shielded the rugby property market from the worst economic recession since 1709. So the real question is, can this growth in rugby house prices continue, or is this the start of a house price crash? One thing is for sure, looking at the number of for sale boards going up and turning to sold just as swiftly shows this market is not maintainable for the long term. Most of the rugby people looking to move home have brought forward their home moves from 2022-23 to this year because of the stamp duty and the lifestyle choice of wanting a bigger garden and office space at home. Nonetheless, the doom-mongers in the press say there will be a second wave of house sellers that will flood the rugby property market in the autumn and winter when furlough ends. They believe many of the 3.4 million people still on furlough will be made redundant when furlough finishes at the end of September 2021, forcing them to move home. This was the catalyst for the house price slump in 2008-09 mentioned previously, when many rugby homeowners dumped their homes onto the rugby housing market. After all, many rugby homeowners lost their job and have mortgages paying 6 to 7% in interest rates. However, the devil is always in the detail. The industry groups with the highest take-up rates of furlough are the hospitality sector, where 70% of staff are furloughed. 65% of hotel staff are furloughed and 44% of people in the creative arts and entertainment industry are furloughed. Most employees in these sectors are in their 20s and early 30s and are tenants, not homeowners. This is going to be more of an issue for landlords than homeowners, I think. Of those furloughed homeowners who do unfortunately get made redundant later in the year, looking at the last 4 most recent house price crashes, buyers were wrestling with significant declines in mortgage affordability. For example, back in 1988, average mortgage rates were 13.9% before that crash, and in 2007 were 6.5%, whilst today they are under 2%, meaning mortgages are a lot more affordable and most rugby homeowners who get made redundant will be able to ride out the storm a lot better. Now I hear you ask, but surely if rugby prices are rising, won't rugby homes become unaffordable? Well, with low interest rates, this means rugby homes are still relatively affordable. In 1989, the house price to earnings ratio was 5.4 times salary, whilst today that stands at 8.8. It's no wonder some people are concerned though, especially as in 2008, that ratio hit 7.5 times salary. However, it doesn't actually matter what the house price to earnings ratio is. It matters what percentage of your income is required to pay your mortgage. In 89, 74.6% of your income was required to service an 80% loan to value mortgage on an average UK home. In the 90s, that percentage dropped yet rose steadily over the next decade and a half. So by the time we got to 2008, that was an equally eye-watering figure of 61.6% of your income. Today, it's only 35.9% of your income, and that is because of the low interest rates. Now, I hear you asking, so if the issue is not the affordability of houses, what is the problem for rugby homeowners? The answer to that is interest rates. The Bank of England interest rates will affect what people pay on their mortgages. Higher rates normally mean higher mortgage payments. Interest rates are used to reduce inflation, so if inflation rises, interest rates also rise to bring inflation back under control. UK inflation has just gone through the 2% barrier, and I believe by the end of this year or early next it will touch 4 or 5%. In normal circumstances, this would trigger the government, or now the Bank of England, to raise interest rates. Yet we had a similar scenario in the late 1980s and early 90s, with a spike in inflation to 8.5% due to a shortage of raw materials and labour, but this was soon sorted out and inflation dropped quite quickly thereafter. In the coming year, a shortage of raw materials might be an issue. If there is a shortage of raw materials, this will fuel a rise in the cost of construction and manufacturing. Next, will there be a shortage of labour? Some say it won't be an issue as unemployment may well be higher. Yet there are certain sectors of the economy that have an imbalance of trained staff or specialised jobs, or people not wanting work in that type of job in the first place. For example, many hospitality and dining establishments are reporting a shortage of staff because they were often filled with hard-working European migrants. I read reports of London restaurants advertising for chefs and waiting staff who would have received over 1,000 inquiries for such jobs pre-pandemic, and for them to only be receiving applications that could be counted on 2 hands this summer. The hospitality and dining sector was hit harder than most, having stopped trading during the 3 lockdowns and working under firm restrictions. This led to the majority of staff being placed on furlough, which has prompted some to ride out the pandemic in their own country. The question is, will they return? If not, to entice them back, restaurants will have to increase the wages they pay to attract the staff, which in turn will mean they'll have to put their prices up. If businesses have to put their wages up and the cost of raw materials continues to rise, prices for everything will rise. And at this point, high interest rates will have to kick in. But how will increased interest rates affect the Rugby property market? Thankfully, 91% of all new mortgages being written are fixed interest rate mortgages, and 78% of all existing UK mortgages are also fixed rate, compared to only 32.8% in the credit crunch. This meaning we won't have so many houses being dumped on the market like we did in the credit crunch, because on a fixed rate mortgage, if interest rates do rise, mortgages don't follow suit. And that's the key. Unemployment combined with high interest rates caused many Rugby homeowners to put their property onto the market in 2008-9. That, tied in with curtailed demand for property because it was really difficult to get a mortgage, gave us an oversupply and subdued demand of Rugby homes, causing house prices to drop between 16 and 19% depending on what type of property you owned. So a good bellwether and indicator on what will or will not happen to Rugby property prices is the number of properties for sale at any one time. There are only 166 properties available to buy in Rugby today, which is low when compared to the 14-year average of 454 properties for sale in the town. At the height of the credit crunch, there were over 1,000 properties for sale at one point in Rugby. As we look to the future, if you want a crystal ball of what will happen to the Rugby property market, you won't go that far wrong by getting yourself on the property portals and seeing how many properties are for sale at the moment. These are my thoughts. What are yours?